good.
Let's start. So I will be talking about optimizing HUD use with small sample sizes, because especially these days, like a lot of guys, like they just have not many hands on, especially in the quarantine time. There's guys that didn't play poker in 5 years and suddenly they jump in your game. But overall, it's yeah, there's still a lot of value in making the good reads with very small info while still playing lots of tables. So I will be talking specifically about Pokertracker and Notetracker. There's other programs out there that are good, but not necessarily better. So I use Pokertracker. And I will be focusing on sample sizes from one hand between 250 hands. So anything higher, it will not be for this lesson. Useful for the smaller networks and unknown players, recreationals, and that's about it. So let's talk first about stats that are harmful with small sample sizes. It's basically every post-flop stat. So you name it: check raise, fold to check raise, c-bet, fold to c-bet, probe, float, fold to delayed c-bet. And the more advanced you get, the less useful it is and the more harmful. But even like stats like fold to flop c-bet, like if you have 200 hands on somebody, it's meaningless. And if you're gonna change your c-bet range based on that, it probably hurts your game more than that it helps. All blind versus blind stats. To get blind versus blind, first everybody needs to fold to the small blind. So it means like if he played 200 hands, like you might have had 1 or 2 times the chance to steal in the small blind. So it's like meaningless. Everything positional raise first in, re-steals, squeeze and positional 3-bets, it's all useless and harmful. Like even guys you have like bigger samples on, like 2000 hands, the re-steal numbers, it's still gonna be very low. Like if it's gonna be like 10%, it's gonna be like 1 out of 10 times, and it's in reality it could be 5% or it could be 25%. It's quite harmful. So all of these, for the guys who have not many hands on, you can forget and throw out of the window. And when you have less than 10 hands, nearly all statistics are useless. Not all, but the vast majority. Pre-flop. So what is still useful? No, not 10k hands, 10 hands. So less than 10 hands.
No, yeah. Niels, what they were asking, or what Darkspace was asking, is for these stats, how many hands do you think is like useful? Like, do you need like such a big sample, like 10,000 hands, for these to really apply? Or?
If you have like 2,000 hands, fold to c-bet in and out of position might be useful. But if you then start looking at fold to turn c-bet, it's like, it's still gonna be like 1 out of 2 times. So if you want to start using, then fold to river c-bet in and out of position, you probably need like 50k hands plus on a guy to make a good use of it.
Okay.
Like if you have, let's say, like 10,000 hands, maybe fold to check raise, it might be like a sample size of 6, and for some guys it might be meaningless. But if he folded like 6 out of 6 times, it's not meaningless. It means something. But if it's like 2 out of 6 or 4 out of 6, it's meaningless. It's the same with fold to 3, but like if it's a sample size of 6, it's meaningless unless he never folds or he always folds. So there is something there in the extreme cases, but today I want to focus like where is the value of a HUD if you have like 20 hands on a guy or even like 5 hands on a guy. or anything less than 200, which is usually if you play like a Sunday Million and you have a guy at your table and you play a few hours and he's still at your table, you will have like between 50 and 150 hands on him, and that's where I want to get the information. Not that much like if you play sit and goes and you have like 2,000 hands on the regular. Yeah, I like that's not what this lesson is gonna be that much about. However, if you have questions on it, I can answer it. So pre-flop, what is useful pre-flop? The overall stats, not positional, just global, VPIP, PFR, raise first in, 3-bet, and call versus open. Like very simple. This is not the HUD that I use because I have guys that I have more samples on too, but assuming that I would have small samples on everybody, this is how my HUD would look like, and this is the HUD I will be using for the examples in this lesson. So all these stats can be skewed a lot by a small sample. So it's together they will give you an indicator of the player profile, but they're not really to do big exploits. It's not like, oh, a guy, oh, it 3-bets 50% and I have 50 hands on him. It doesn't mean anything, but it's the relation between everything that sort of like gives you the overview of what type of player it is. So these basic stats are not for big exploits. However, if you have a guy, you have 10 hands and he called opens like 60% of the time, it's means something. It doesn't mean he calls ace 2 off on the button, but he's not waiting for pocket pairs and suited aces. Then the other stat that I didn't mention there is it's a custom stat. It's not standard in Pokertracker. It's the open limp with the small blind taken out, because especially like the last few years, people have been limping from the small blind very often. And if you take the general open limp with small blind included, it will be skewed, and you will have people who never limp and they will have like 20% open limp because they limp 100% in the small blind. So I took those out, small blind, and I took out the over limps because I don't really care how much somebody over limps. I want to see how much somebody open limps. And because of you take out those, it's the single best indicator to spot recreationals in the blink of an eye. Like you have many guys, and if you look at VPIP, PFR, and race first in, they look like regulars. Like it might be like something like 30, 20, 20, 30, 20, 20, and it looks like a regular. And then you see like open limp 10% or open limp 50%, whatever. It's that's the stats I look at if I want to see if it's a fish or not. And that's usually also how you see how soft your table is. And you don't need much sample size on it. Like for some guys, it's like sample size 3 hands and he limped like 50% of them. It's like you almost know he's a fish with 3 hands, and all the other stats will be meaningless. So this is the single best stat to spot fish. I don't know if Hold'em Manager has it. I do know Hold'em Manager doesn't have custom stats, but maybe you can, yeah. I don't know if you can do it there, but basically what's important is that you take out the small blind, because that's the one that skews it. So in terms of the values, like if it's less than 4, not much is going on here. Most recs have this on 0 or on 1. And like they can have like limp 1%, but because of the sample, it might be like 3 or 4. It doesn't mean much. Like they might limp with whatever, with 20 big blinds on the button a bit, or they might limp here and there a pocket pair on some tables, or they just might, yeah, look down at pocket aces with 12 big blinds under the gun and say, I'm going for a limp here, and not limp anything else. So yeah, assume he limps some small pairs early on. If the blinds are 15-30, he's probably gonna be limping like those typical limping ends, the pocket pairs, and maybe some limp traps, like if, especially at the shorter stack depths, and you see open limp is less than 4%, that's when I start to get worried that he's trapping. If it's higher, like 4 to 15%, it's very likely to be a fish. And if you combine it then with call open that is high, or some VPIP that is high, then you can almost be certain he's a fish in very small sample sizes. On bigger sample sizes, like let's say limp 10%, it's hard to say what they limp, but they're not the type that limps like ace to offsuit under the gun. Like they still limp like pretty hands, like a king jack off, ace jack off, some traps, some pairs, some suited aces. Like they don't limp like queen eight offsuit in middle position. However, if it gets higher than 15, it's guaranteed it's a fish. Like maybe once in a blue moon there's a fish, like a reg that plays a limping strategy, but yeah, it's maybe like 1 in a million players. So it's if it's higher than 15, you're certain it's a fish. And like he will limp a lot of trash. Like he might look at like his jack 2 suited on in middle position and say, yeah, it's only one big blind to see a flop, so I'm seeing a flop. And in extreme, the biggest whales, they can have like 50 or 70%, and they just need to see a flop. That's about the open limp. If you guys have questions, feel free to write in the chat about this. Antero is typing, so I'll stay on this slide for a second. No, it's okay. Okay. So some general player profiles. It's not all the profiles that exist, but it's like from the examples I took out of my database. Yeah, I gave names to the profiles that I found. So the stats of the regulars, a typical reg. What do you see here is like pretty high raise first in. Like this is 33, but on a bigger sample it might be 20 or 18, or it might be something in that neighborhood. But the ratios are more or less similar. But the raise first in here is important, and the call open is like around the 20%, which is quite good ranges, I would say. Like the 3-bets change here a lot, and that's pure because of the sample size. Like you would think this guy is a nit, but he's not necessarily. Like it's just small sample. And what's the difference between this and a fish? It's only the open limp. Like you can have fish. Yeah, see his call an open basically. A general, like somebody opens and then how much they call. All these stats could be big fish, except the open limp makes them not fish. Like I see fish, they have exactly the same as this, and then they have open limp 10%, and then you know it's a fish. Yeah, it includes from the big blind defense, but like when I see like 20%, I don't think like 20%. It means all pairs, all suited aces, suited broadways. Like any defense reasonable from the big blinds. I don't put it like in an exact range. It's more like the profile, like yeah, he's defending like average. So I don't try to put too much exact hands on it. But if it gets to 40%, then I start to think, yeah, he's calling hands he shouldn't be calling. the gap between, yeah, that's why, like, because a lot of players, they choose between PFR and raise first in. I put them together. In reality, you don't need the pre-flop raise to see how much he's opening, but I put it there to see the gap between the VPIP and the PFR. And if the gap is like small, let's say like 22 and 20, and then suddenly he flats you with 15 big blinds, those are the guys that are trapping. Like if that gap between PFR and VPIP is small. VPIP just includes if they a PFR includes when they 3-bet, like 3-bet and call. So basically somebody raises, then you cannot, or somebody limps, then you cannot raise first in anymore. So then, yeah, I don't know exactly, to be honest. Like, I just use it to see the correlation between these two. And when I try to see how much they actually open, I'll look at the raise first in. But it doesn't matter too much. It's more about comparing different players and yeah, and try to see what type of player it is. And this has nothing to do still with how they play post flop. So it's just all the pre-flop profiles. Tight aggressives, they're just like a good chunk tighter. Like their raise first in is tighter, their VPIP is tighter. Their 3-bet is gonna be tighter, even though the 3-bet is very skewed. Their call versus open is tighter. Yeah, classical nit, but it doesn't mean he's nitty post flop. It just he's pre-flop nitty, or it might be just from the beginning in the tournament. You have 26 hands on him, and the way he plays in the beginning of a tournament, he's just super tight. So, but it's a different type of regular. He's not the one who is gonna be looking down at 10-5 offsuit on the button and go for a steal. Like, yeah, they're just not these guys. I call it the limping reg because there are regs that have some open limps, and this is about the highest limps you will see from regulars. It can be skewed because it might be like 1%, but only 10 samples, and you happen to limp one of those, so it might be a bit higher. But from most regulars, this is the highest you will see. For the rest, their stats are the same. What does it mean? Not much. Like they are the ones when they limp under the gun with 10 big blinds. Yeah, I'm a bit scared, and I might not jam my ace jack on them and just overcall and see a flop, or yeah, I'm careful versus those guys. These ones are just to show that when, how to say it, it doesn't mean when they open limp something that they are gonna be fish. Okay, the fish stats. I call it the aggro fish. It's basically very high raise first in. Not that crazy they still play like decent ends. Like, yeah, if you open middle position and he's on the hijack, he will not fold his king jack, and maybe he shouldn't. But he's not like looking down at ace 2 and gonna see a flop there. They are aggressive. Like they might look down at 8-6 suited in middle position and say, I like it, and go for a steal. Like, they're the typical like aggro fish. And they also limp, but yeah, they don't limp like the trash. They limp like the classical hands, like the pairs and some ace jack here and there. They might even limp like an ace king with 30 big blinds for a trap, like stuff like that. Not the big whales, but they are definitely fish. The no steal fish, I gave it this name because they don't steal. Like, their raise first in is very low. All the rest is going to be very similar as this guy, except their raise first in is extremely low. And this translates to post flop too. Like if these guys, if they c-bet like a pot size c-bet, you're almost certain that he's gonna not going for a one and done air bluff, or when they over jam the river, like there's very unlikely they will be bluffing because of this tendency of being so tight when they're aggressive pre-flop already. But then again, how do you see that this guy is a fish? Like VPIP is normal, PFR is normal, raise first in is more or less normal with this size. It's the open limp. Like again, this is the single most important stat to see if it's a fish, because the rest looks more or less normal. Then you have the whale, and the whale is the type that just needs to see a flop. Like they limp a bunch. Like when you will have them on your table, they will be limping anything. They're in under the gun. They look down at ace two off. They need to see a flop. They just need to see a flop. When you raise, they call anything that is somewhat pretty. They're the ones that show up with 8-6 offsuit and cut on versus button. Like, they're the biggest whales. Like, and it's important to spot these guys too. And the open limp is gonna be higher, and the VPIP is gonna be higher, and the call is normally gonna be higher too. So, and then I have like the no limp fish. Some guys are just, they're pretty bad, but they don't limp, and typically they're aggressive in general. Like I don't think they fold 5-6 suited that often, and like they're aggressive, but the aggressive nature is not necessarily the thing. The thing is like usually you see it like on a hand they played, like they did something like very stupid that you can assume that they are a fish, and then I would note them as a fish even though they don't limp at all, or didn't yet limp at all. So I call it the no limp fish. Typically the VPIP is gonna be higher, but it's mostly gameplay based. Okay, for pre-flop in terms of HUD stats, that's about what I wanted to cover. It's very general, and it's more to see what type of player you're playing against. For post-flop, there's not much post-flop stats that are useful if you have like 50 hands on a guy, but there are some, and the only one that I use with those guys is aggression frequency. There's like different types of stats. There's like aggression factor, there's like aggression quotient, and those can be quite misleading because they just measure passiveness, but they don't take in the times when they fall to an all-in, and they don't take into account when somebody calls. And so I call this one aggression frequency. It's a custom stat. It's not standard in Pokertracker. I believe this one is the exact one they use in Hold'em Manager, but it's the simple formula like bet or raise divided by bet or raise opportunity. In this part, if they face an all-in and they fold, it's not included because they didn't have a chance to re-raise. If they face a big river bet and they fold, it is included in here because they had a chance to check raise. And to me, this gives like the best indicator in terms of aggression on each post-flop street, flop, turn, and river. So on the flop, like it's an indicator of the c-bet on the flop, the check raise, and the bet versus missed c-bet or float bet that Pokertracker calls it. So because if you take these stats separately, it will be giving very wrong information with small samples. So imagine somebody in extreme, he donk bets every flop. When he has a chance to raise the flop, he raises. When he has a chance to bet the flop, he's betting. Then he will have 100%. If somebody does nothing out of position, but just bets every time in position, it will be 50% or more or less. It's not exactly true, but around the 50. So just so you have a bit understanding, like nobody will have 100%. If they have around the 50, it's gonna be very high already. So less than 26%, they're very passive, and in generally, I assume they don't have too many check raise bluffs. General big C bets mean strength with these guys, and I'm not checking to balance with my value hands because I'm like, I don't think he's exploiting me. If he's so passive, then I can just delete c-bet with my trash and just start building a pot with my good hands. When it's 30 to 38%, it's like the normal profile. I think most of you guys will have something in the 33, 35 range, and then you just need to play good poker, what you will have to do most of the time. And then 38 to 50, it's like can still be normal, but with aggressive tendency. So they will have some check raise bluffs. They will c-bet air quite often, very often. So they will probably bet when you check to them when they're in position. And when it's higher than 50, it's like almost like maniac tendencies. They will almost certainly check raise trash. They will c-bet almost 100%, like they will c-bet a lot. So you can check raise more as bluffs. He will bet when you check to him, so it's more, yeah, like if you say with the hands that is gonna plan to check fold, you might think about then c-betting because you're not gonna win the hand versus these guys. And the same with your value hands, you might just check to get value in from his trash because he's gonna be betting. For the turn, it's very similar, but it's an indicator of turn c-bet, of turn probe, of delayed c-bet, and float bet. So float bet is missed bet versus missed c-bet. The same, less than 25, very passive. If I have a close spot and I face a turn c-bet and I see this is 25, I'm just gonna fold. It's just on the flop already. I can look at the turn. If I have a hand that is gonna check fold on the turn, I might fold to an aggro guy, but I will still call with bottom pair to this guy because he's not gonna be bluffing too many turns. So he will also not bet when you check to him. So I'm just starting to build a pot with my value hands, and I make some bigger folds on the turn. 25 to 35 is gonna be normal, just playing good poker. And 35 to 50 is still normal, but with aggressive tendency. Like if he c-bets on a king high board, like he will not just continue with draws. Like he will have some trash there too that he's gonna bet on the turn, but it's not necessarily a maniac. And then you have like 50 plus, and he will just bet like he will just bet when you check to him. He will c-bet nearly everything, even the illogical stuff. He will just try to barrel you off on the turn. Like he will probe anything when you check back the flop. He will be probing. So if you have a hand that is gonna fold to a probe bet, you might just c-bet versus this guy because you will not win the pot if he if you check back the flop. Like if you have like whatever, like a weak ace that wants to go to showdown, if you don't plan to bluff catch the turn, then you're probably not gonna get to showdown. So you might as well c-bet, I think. Aggression on the river, it's the same. It's indicator for the bluff frequency and how much they will bet when you check to them. And river c-bet too, like general the bets. There's also dong bets in this formula too, but like it doesn't happen so often, so I don't mention it in here. Again, less than 25, very passive. He will give up a lot of his bluffs. He will not value bet super thin, especially with bigger sizes. So when you check back a second pair to bluff catch the river, then to this guy I probably find a fold. So I'm not making like hero folds, but I will make some quite big folds because in general they just value bet to you. Of course, it's very general. Like you still need to play poker and yeah, think what's going on and in terms of like blocking bluffs. But when it already doesn't feel right and you see his river aggression is 25%, it's best just to lay it down. When it's 25 to 35, it's normal with tight tendencies. So just play good poker, and when in doubt on the river, you fall to river bet, but you're still gonna call with the good bluff catchers. Like it's not that you need to beat his value range to bluff catch. It's just it's quite normal, like, but not the ones whose strategy is like, okay, I'm gonna bluff everybody off here. And then 35 to 45, it's normal with aggressive tendency. If you look at like the best recs, they have something around this, around the 38, 40, something like that. So with these guys, I assume he will bluff when given a chance, unless it's like a very terrible run out or like. But I'm yeah. To these guys, I played the most close to GTO in terms of like bluff catching. And then you have like 45 plus. It's usually like the maniacs. Like they will bet when you check to them. So hands that I might normally value bet, I might just check because they will make very logical bets, like with third pairs and second pairs, and they will value bet like very shitty top pairs, and so, and also to these I'm almost I'm bluff catching much more than what GTO should do. Like I still fold the worst bluff catchers, but I do call a lot versus these guys. So some examples about this aggression. 30 big blinds hijack versus big blinds. We open on the hijack, jack 10 suited, 2.2x. Big blind defense. Flop comes queen 9 deuce. We see bet the third pot, and the big blind calls. Okay. There's a question. There's a few questions from Montero. Why aggression stats are useful even with less than 1k hands. You will see that in the examples, like there's a clear pattern between guys. It's just a general tendency, like will they go for the bet or just give up? And the question of Breno is, just to be clear, Niels, this is the same as aggression percentage. You're just pointing out what to note from it on each street. Exactly. And aggression percentage is divided by street. Like, so I have aggression, you will see it here. So we have aggression on the flop, aggression on the turn, and aggression on the river. So flop, turn, river. So it's divided by each street. Okay. So here we open the hijack, jack 10 of clubs. Big blind calls. We see bet the third pot with the open ender. He calls. Turn comes a jack. Goes check, check. The river, 3 of clubs, and he leads 450 to 600. Like in a normal like GTO world, I believe this is gonna be always a call. If you look at the minimum defense frequency, it's quite high in our range. We don't have any diamond, so it looks like a good call versus nearly everybody. So when I still look at this before I decide to make the call. But when I see this is already like 50, I don't make big folds, and I'm just gonna close my eyes and make the call to this guy, because the river aggression is 50. Combined with previous streets aggression, it gives another like tendency for aggression. Here's another guy. He also has 50 on the river, but it might be a small sample. But combined with the previous streets, like the turn 83, it's again he tends to bet when he has the chance. So he's gonna be bluffing like all of his missed draws, and he might be, because he's a fish, he might be calling the flop with hands that you wouldn't expect, like yeah, whatever, like pocket fours and a6 offsuit, just because of the price. So I'm just calling versus these two guys. And then you have here a guy, we have 130 hands on him, and his aggression on all streets is 0, which is, you don't see these guys often, but when you see them, it's like they don't bluff. Like he's gonna be giving up with his missed draws, and to these guys I just fold. And yeah, so to these I make quite big folds. I would fold ace jack here too, and I start calling with whatever queen I still have here. And in some spots I just fold my entire range and feel pretty good about it. And here's another guy. He looks like a regular, like doesn't mean like a good regular, but his overall like aggressions everywhere, and especially the river is like very low, and their game is a lot of like value betting. So I'm gonna be, one second, my dog is trying to get out of the room. One moment. Yeah, he's free. So to these guys, it's still a small sample, so like it's still very close, even with this 25. But like if it's less than 25, I tend to overfold. And when you will start looking at it and you start to ignore this stat, then you will see so often they just have it. And you can call whatever you think is normally a call, and then test put it to the test and keep observing it. But to these two guys I would be making the fold, and to these two guys I would be calling pretty easy. 30 big blinds, we open middle position with kings, and the cutoff flats. Pretty good flop. Like I don't even know, to be honest, what we should be doing in like theory, because it depends so much on how much he's raising the flop, how much he's shoving the flop, how much he's gonna bet when you check to him. So I don't know what you have to do in theory versus a bot, but I think you can go. There's many strategies. But let's look at this first guy. Like we have 160 hands, and his flop aggression is like very low, like 11. It's one of the lowest you will ever see, because it means he misses a lot of c-bets if it's that low. So I don't want to just check and then let him check back his pocket eights, or let him check back his flush draws or whatever, because these are the guys that do that stuff. So I just start to build a pot here, and I would c-bet, and I would c-bet something like half pot at this depth to start to get money in. And because his turn is also super low, I will be following through on the turn and probably on the river too. So Antero asks, what do you think about bet versus missed c-bet stats? I used to have that one for this kind of spot. Yeah, it's true. It's a good stat, but not with 164 hands. Like it's quite, it will be like, oh, 50%, but it's 1 out of 2 times. So it's better to look at his general aggression. And somebody that c-bets too much is the same guy that will be starting with a bet when check 2 in these heads up pots. So it's a general indicator. So to this guy, I would just go for the bet shove line. But let's say another guy is like flop 11 and turn 70%. then I would go for flop bet and check on the turn, because I like as a trap. So this guy, the second guy, 70 hands, it's a very small sample, but if it's like 83, like the 50 here, it can be 1 out of 2 times, but 83, it's at least like a 10 flop sample, like it will be like, yeah, maybe it's probably like 7 out of 8 times it's gonna be, which means something. It doesn't mean that it's like the bet versus missed c bet. It can be probes, it can be c bets from himself on the turn, but it gives a general tendency that is quite accurate. So versus the second guy, I like starting with a check and probably check call, given how much he's been betting on the turn. And then see on the turn if I'm gonna go for a check raise or for a check call, again, depending on the run out. To other guys that have high this and low this, I would go for the check raise. So like this guy, he has like reasonably high on the flop, nothing crazy, but he has very low on turn and river. And to this guy, I would probably go for the check raise, and here I would go for the check call. So it's not that I have like a fixed GTO strategy in these type of spots. Of course, if you have sample size of 0, you need to do something, and then it's best to play whatever you learned to do in these spots. The last sample of these post-flop ones. So 30 big blinds, we open the button and 8-5 spades, and the big blind calls. Flop is queen, jack 4, rainbow. We don't have any backdoor flush draw. Again, I don't even know what to do here as a standard, to be honest. But I will tell you what I do versus specific players. So even though it's a small sample, like his turn aggression is 71. And again, it's not a round number like 50, it's 71. So it's gonna be like 5 out of 7 times, somewhere in that range, because he's been seeing a flop 63% of the time. So 20 times already. So it gives some indication that he will be betting. Of course, if you have 2,000 hands and it's 770, it's even much better. But if you're gonna check this flop here, you're very unlikely to win the hand, like because of his tendency to be aggressive on the turn. Even though you only have 32 hands, it means quite a lot here because he saw the flop so often. So to this guys, I would start with a c bet, and especially keep in mind that some fish, like if you see 60% of the time a flop, they will still be dong betting a lot when they have a pair. So combine that with his turn aggression, makes this as a pretty good c bet versus this specific guy. Regardless of what your turn and river strategy is, just in a vacuum on the flop. This guy is quite similar. I look mostly at the turn aggression here. If you're gonna check here on the flop, you're not gonna win the pot. Like, yeah, maybe if you hit an 8 or a 5 and start bluff catching, but it will be very hard to win the pot. So I just c bet my trash on these boards versus these guys. And then you have these guys. It's like the classical, we said, like he's not a nit because he opens a lot, but he's very passive post flop. Like especially if you check this board, yeah, in their mind we have a jack. Like he's not the type that will start like, yeah, start betting with anything basically. So versus this guy, you can go either way because he's not gonna check raise you either. So I don't mind just c betting, but it's like it might be better to just check back and delayed c bet, and then you don't put in money when he has a queen, and you pick up the pot when he doesn't have a queen, because if he's very low turn aggression. So to this guy, I'll lean towards delayed c betting, but it's not like, it might be even better to c bet just because of his low flop aggression. This is the last guy for here. Like he's quite aggressive on the flop. Doesn't mean too much yet in terms of check raises and stuff. But he's very low on the turn, like less than 25%. So to this guy, that might be check raising a good amount, and is very like passive on the turn. I strongly like a delayed c-bet with this trash. Like yeah, we have some backdoors if we c-bet, but are they that good to follow through? I don't know. Like a 9 and a 10. Like I guess they are. So yeah, that's about the examples I want to show, like how I use these post-flop aggression factors to yeah, to change my strategies post-flop basically. And keep in mind, the vast majority, you're just gonna play good poker. It's just like the extreme guys, that's where you're gonna make the adjustments. And the extreme guys, it's usually the fish. So that's also where it's important to make the adjustments. There was a question from Antero. What do you say about the relation between VPIP and turn aggression? There's not that much correlation. Like, yeah, if somebody opens 8-5 suited under the gun, he's more likely to be bluffing on later streets. But like, there's many fish that play 50% of hands, and they just want to see a flop. And if they have nothing, they're not betting. So it's the aggression is there's not that much a relation between the aggression and the VPIP. Like yeah. The sample size will be bigger of your turn aggression because they will be seeing more flops. So yeah. So any more questions about like the HUD stats we used here? And then I will go to the Notetracker notes. So Breno asks, you didn't mention 3-bet stats much. You said it's not very useful with a small sample. How do you use it? Good question. So I'll go back. Actually, we can do it with any of these stats. So let's look at these guys. Like 3-bet 0, like nobody has 3-bet 0. Like it's meaningless. The only reason I put it there is to, some guys are extreme. Like if in 10 hands he 3-betted 9 out of 10 times, it means something. Like, but if he 3-bet 0 out of 10 times or 2 out of 10 times, it doesn't mean anything. But it's more about like the general profile, and it gets more accurate the more hands you have. But it's yeah, how to say it, for the guys that have like small sample, I don't use it unless like the extremities, like 3-bet 5 out of 6 times he had the chance, that means something. But if it's like here 4 or 20, it doesn't mean much on 150 hands, just the overall profile. Total aggression percentage is useful, question mark. Maybe it is. I didn't try it out. Like the way I get to stats that I actually use is like I get into a spot where I think I would like to know more information. I build a stat that might give that information, and then I just play. And I look at differences between the players. I look some people up to see if it's an indicator or not, and then a lot of stats I just delete like within 2 weeks, and then some stats stay and they are usually quite good. So I haven't tried the total aggression percentage. It might be good. Mark asks, what ranges for aggression percentage do you start to go after with exploits? Again, I'm not doing massive exploits. Like I still play poker. Like it's not that like let's say I have like queen 10. It's not that I'm gonna check to this guy because he thinks he's like, I assume he will be putting a lot of money in because it's still a small sample. So I still play poker, but like these hands that are like in GTO, I'm not even sure if I should be c-betting or not. That's where I try to use this info to make the slide changes. But if I have like queens here or aces, I'm never gonna check, even though I think he's aggressive when I check back with these samples. Let's say I have 50,000 hands and I see this is 71, or his probe is 100%. Yeah, sure, then I check my queens and my aces and stuff, but not with these small sample sizes. And the same with the pocket kings. I'm not really sure what to do versus in real GTO world. And then I just base myself on this flop aggression and turn aggression and kind of make estimated guesses to what is the best strategy. So same with the river folds. Without a bigger sample, I don't make like the massive folds. But was it here? But like yeah, like this guy is extreme. Like he's not gonna be bluffing. Like yeah, he might show up from time to time with the bluff, but he's not gonna be bluffing enough for me to make the call winning. So this is already a very big exploit if I'm gonna be folding a hand like ace jack here, which is basically folding my entire range. So that's a pretty big exploit. Here I'm careful with folding my entire range, but I do make quite big folds. And it's the same, like if this guy is like 60, like he's gonna be c-betting whatever he has. Like if the flop comes like whatever, say queen 7-5, you can be sure he will be c-betting all his trash based on this flop aggression factor, like imposition, I mean. And yeah, I'm not making like too big exploits, but like I do assume that he's gonna be a lot of auto faults to check raises and yeah, stuff like that. Okay. Okay, let's go to the Notetracker. So Notetracker is a free expansion from Pokertracker. It's in there. It's free. It's very simple. Simple, what I mean, it's like, yeah, it could be a program from 15 years ago, and it probably is. And it's quite elegant in its simplicity. So what it does is you make like a definition, and he makes an automatic note for you. So this guy, he somewhere along the road, he limped king queen offsuit with 4 to 8 big blinds, and his position was low jack to early position. And whatever he limped, this Notetracker makes that note automatically. So the default notes are very shitty and very can be very harmful. It's like 3-bet button, like yeah, you can see, yeah, 3-bet button king jack, but he might have reshoved with 5 big blinds with his king jack, or like it doesn't mean much, like or whatever, raise first in under the gun, pocket eights, like it's meaningless. What is it? Is it a 3x with 15 big blinds? Is it a shove with 6 big blinds? It's quite meaningless. So I started to look for like where do I need the info the most, because like I still play many tables, because if like you can take notes of this manually, but then you can play only like 4 tables at once, and some people do that. But it's still nice to play 10 or 12 tables or more and know when a fish limped with ace to offsuit under the gun with 10 big blinds. That I've seen it, and like you only have like 50 hands here, and it can be even only 2 hands, and it will make this note. And like suddenly when somebody limps with 10 big blinds then under the gun, suddenly my ace 10 on the button looks a lot more nicer than than without that info. So I started with the limps, focusing specifically on 25 big blinds and under, because I expected to see like 20 notes on people, and if you have too many notes, it's again not useful anymore because you just don't have time to look at it. And the way this looks in game is you have your HUD and you just hover over this node icon, and then this node window pops up with whatever nodes you have on him. So it's you can have like whatever 15 tables stacked, and you still have time to look what's going on. You don't even need to click on a pop-up. You just hover over, and it shows whatever info you have. Then again, like, yeah, this already gives me a lot of info in lots of other spots. Like next time he limps on the button with 15 big blinds, I don't think he only has like pocket aces and kings. Like he has a lot of other stuff too. So I started with the limp, and I came to the conclusion that like this might be a total of like 15 nodes to cover all those limp situations. On most guys, you only have like 1 or 2 nodes, which gives like already very good information. So I started to add like raise first in nodes, specifically at where I want it. Like yeah, if somebody 3x's with 20 big blinds from middle position, like what did he had before that? Like, did he had like queens? Does he have like ace jack? Does he have like random shit? But I like to know what they had in very specific. So I go as specific as possible, and it leads to like more than 500 custom nodes, which I coded myself. It's a lot of like copy pasting and making small tweaks, and you will still have on most players like between like 3 and 5 nodes, but they will giving useful information. There's a question from Breno. Could it be possible to make a note for raise folds from 8 to 12 big blinds? People that like to polar open. Yeah, I have that notes too. It will come near the end. I will show you. Mark says, I haven't used Notetracker in years, but the last time I did it was filled with that sort of garbage stat, like you mentioned, such as VPIP AA under the gun, 1 to 20 big blinds deep, 3-bet premium from blinds. Exactly. Yeah, that's the first thing I do is remove all those notes because they are quite shitty and and they will fill it up. So I want the stuff that I want to know, like and very specific. If it 2x's or 2.2x's, I want to know what hand he had at a specific stack depth. And I was in the beginning, I thought like it will be scary because I will be people that I have like 2,000 notes on, and it's like not good. But you don't. Like usually you have like 2 or 4 or 5 notes, and yeah. See, Mark gives an example like hands-on player 300, Notetracker notes 30,205. So it might even be useful if you one table your Sunday million on a Sunday, and then look at every little thing. But so for raise first in, I want to go very detailed. I want to know every bet size he did. Like if he 2x'd with aces at like let's say 18 to 27 big blinds. Next time he 2x, I don't think he has aces, but next time he 2.2x's, I might regem a little bit lighter just because I think he 2x's with aces and goes 2.2x with the rest, which improves my equity a lot when called. So I want to know specific, and it starts with the fish, because fish they are not balanced. They 2.5x, they 3x, they 4x. Like they make big shoves with 30 big blinds. Like I don't have the time to make those notes myself when I'm playing 10 tables, but I want it to be there. So all these specific sizes separately for each of these positions. Cutoff and hijack I take together, the low jack and MP I take together, and the two early positions I take together. And heads up I also put there. However, if you don't play many sit and goes, it will not be useful, and it's better just to keep the space for the other stuff. But if you do play a lot of sit and goes, the heads up separate is also good. And I chose stack depths that I think I find the most useful, like 3 to 5 big blinds. Like I will not like when somebody like let's say 2x's with 4 big blinds, I do want to know what he has. Like, does he actually have aces and queens, or does he have like queen 5 suited, like to make more folds? So it's stuff that I would like to make notes on when I play one table. And like 5 to 8 big blinds, yeah, he 3x'd. Like, was it to make more folds, or does he just 3x's when he has the goods? So even though it's very shallow depths, and then it gets to the most relevant depths, 18 to 8 big blinds, where I want to see what the open shoved, what the min raised, what the 2.2x. And once it gets deeper, it gets less into detail, because it's, yeah, I'm not making like that big of exploits because of it, but I do want to see when somebody 3x's at 50 big blinds on the button, what did he had before? And you don't need many samples if he went to the showdown. So it looks like a shitload of notes, but you will see on most players, let's say you guys, and you always 2.2x as a standard size. Suddenly all these other sizes will not be creating notes for you, and then it's already a bunch of less notes. So you will see, like, you will not have too many notes. And it will look something like this. Like, so you hover over the HUD and you see raise first in, 5 to 8 big blinds, cutoff to hijack, all in. So the AI is all in, and he had queen jack off. And the second one is raise first in, 8 to 10 big blinds, small blinds, all in, 8-5 suited. Yeah, even with low sample size, it's yeah. I trust that he knows that what he's shoving. Like so, I treat him as a regular when it comes to push fold, and yeah, I'm happy to call with my king 6 suited versus his small blind shoves, and I'm not making big folds when it comes to facing his shoves. So like, let's say this is like, if you would look here to like small blind shove, it would be like 1 out of 2 times or 1 out of 1 times with this sample. But knowing this one exact hand gives already much more information than any stat can do there. This guy, 55 hand sample, raise first in, 5 to 8 big blinds, cutoff to hijack, all in, queen 3 suited. No hands. It could be a fish, could be a wreck, doesn't matter. Seeing this, I know he's shoving at least what he should be shoving, and probably wider. So I'm not making, again, big folds from the small blind. Yeah, I can be confident that he's shoving his ace-2 offsuit with 10 big blinds on the button and that type of stuff. So small sample, lots of information in one note. Like, it doesn't give me only info on his 5 to 8 cutoff strategy. It gives me info on his entire short stack push fold. So third example, this guy is a fish. Raise first in, 15 to 18 big blinds button, 3x, king 9 off. So suddenly my is then suited looks a lot nicer facing that 3x. Where to some guys I might be folding my ace jack, and to this guy I'm quite happy to get it in there with my whatever a7 suited. It doesn't mean he doesn't 3x with his ace king. He doesn't just only have like the good hands. And keep in mind, this can be skewed because he might 3xing to call a knockout or to call an 8 big blind stack in the big blind. So it's still skewed, but it gives some info. And yeah, this is 5 to 8 big blinds, cutoff, hijack, all in, 4-4. Meaningless. I think everybody shoves it, even the worst fish. It's more about this 3x note. So and it translates to like if he 3x's in middle position and with 20 big blinds, and I look down at his queen or his jack suited, I'm gonna get it in versus him. If I look down at my pocket eights, I'm gonna get it in, where to other players I might not get it in. Yeah. And in terms of open limp notes, again, the positions, small blind button, cutoff, hijack, I take together because like I don't care what the limp specifically on the cutoff or the hijack. It's a similar type of range, and same with low jack and early position. Like if he limps king jack suited under the gun, he's gonna limp it from the low jack too, most likely. So I keep them together to still keep the notes and the information, yeah, a bit compact. The stack depths are a bit different. Again, start with the shortest depth, less than 4 big blinds, 4 to 8 big blinds, 8 to 12, 12 to 15, 15 to 22, and then 22 to 40 and 40 plus. Like, I think these are reasonable like ranges. Like what he limps at 22 will be quite similar what he limps at 30, I believe. For Rex, it's not guaranteed, but it's yeah. Again, this is mostly for fish with small sample sizes. It will look like this. This is again a fish. 32 hands, 1 note, limp 4 to 8 big blinds, cutoff to hijack, ace 5 off. What does it tell me? That he doesn't just have pocket aces when he limps with 5 big blinds, and again he has no clue about push fold. So he's probably, when he's gonna be shoving for 10 big blinds in the small blind, he's gonna be tighter than the average player. So I'm gonna be calling his shoves a bit tighter. I'm not gonna make big folds to his short stack limps, and yeah, that's how I also instantly know he's a fish, like when I see this note. Then this guy, limp 48 big blinds, low jack early position, A, and raise first in, 8 to 10 big blinds, button all in, jack 4 suited. What does this tell me? He's to the trappier side. So especially if he's gonna be limping 12 big blinds from early position, I might over limp my pocket tens or my my ace jack that I was normally gonna shove and play a flop. And it also tells me that he's shoving light. Like this can be from a sit and go on the bubble, so I don't assume he's shoving this light every time he has 10 big blinds on the button, but I do assume with this that has like at least the normal shoving ranges, so I'm not making big faults on him. And I'm careful when he's like limping in those spots that you think he's trapping, and it can be like if he limps with 8 big blinds in the small blinds, yeah, he might be limping like an ace-6 offsuit to trap you there. So I'm a bit more careful. So he's more to the trappy side. Do you use some limp fold stats? I do use some limp fold stats, and I do use limp fold versus different sizes, versus all-ins, versus 3x, versus 4x, versus 2x. However, this is not the stuff that I use on people I have 100 hands on. Like it's stuff when you have like 10,000 hands on people. Mark says very concise, useful notes, nice stat ranges such as stack depth for those single incident nodes that can tell much. And Christy says also nice thoughts on notes, Niels. Gonna have to prep for the session. See you and good luck. Okay, good luck. Thanks. Another example is like limp 16 to 22 big blinds, low jack to EP, fives and ace-5 suited. So whatever comes extra, it just gets added in the list. And most likely this was right at the border of 22 big blinds, and that it shows double. So again, when he limps there with 15 big blinds, I'm not afraid of pocket aces. So like I will be shoving my ace-10 suited and king-queen suited and stuff like that. So and here's another example: limp 12 to 15 big blinds in the small blind jacks. Means not much in terms of what is limping, but suddenly when I face a 2x with 15 big blinds, suddenly I'm much more likely to rejam my queen 5 suited, just because if he's limping these, he's gonna be min raising not with those. So it gives some info in the other parts of his ranges. And here I have like raise first in, 15 to 18 big blinds, cutoff to hijack 2x, aces. Next time he 2x's, I'm not thinking he only has aces, but next time he 2.2x's, I do think he's unlikely to have aces, and I might rejam the close hands, but I will not be making massive exploits on that. Important to connect the dots, because you will have very limited information with less than 100 hands. So a few examples, like a player that has a note 5x aces at 60 big blind plus is the same type that when he overbets on the river, he's gonna be under bluffing and potentially never be bluffing. And when he c-bets big, or when he c-bets multi-way, like he's and to the bigger side, he's much less likely to have random bluffs, just because that's what he does. When you have a big hand, he's gonna bet big, and it translates to post flop, to flop c-bets, and to river value bets the same. When he has the goods, he will want the max, and he will be potting or over potting. And this note will give us more or less that guess. Still a guess, but yeah, that's what we do. We make guesses for a living. So another example is a player that 3x 8-5 suited under the gun at 60 big blind plus. He's the same guy that probably is going to be bluffing a lot overall. So I might give him a bit more room to bluff. And is like that 8-5 suited, most likely it's going to be when he was going for a bounty. So he's the same guy that is going to go for bounties. So yeah, translating this one note to some other moments, that's what you're gonna do. Why I'm not using NoteCaddy? I tried NoteCaddy. The main reason is the disk space. Like, it's a great program, it's visual, it's very clean, but 10 gigabyte of Pokertracker database, it will be like 100 gigabyte of NoteCaddy notes, and it will just fill up your hard disk like instantly. and which will mean that you can only make notes like from the past few months, and then it's suddenly not that useful anymore. In Notetracker, 10 gigabyte of Pokertracker, it will be less than 1 gigabyte of notes. I'm not sure exactly how much, but it's very little, because it's very simple text. It just makes text very small. And if you know that a hand history is like a few million words of text, and it takes almost no space, then one note of text, it takes almost nothing. So that's why I use that Notetracker. Why not hand to note? Hand to note is the nuts with big sample sizes. If I would be playing 500 NL Zoom, two tabling, hand to note is simple nuts, because you have the time to look for all the small things. It's very visual, very detailed. However, it takes very long to set up a good workable HUD. Like, it's not easy. Like, I tried to work on it. I spent time on it. The options are unlimited, but it's not easy to do, and hard to multi-table with small sample sizes, because this is kind of how hand to note looks like, very in detail. But let's say this guy, 96 hands, and 2 hands of those went to showdown, and we have it. So raise button 18 big blinds, 2.1 to 2.2x, ace 8, raise first in 15 to 18 big blinds, cutoff hijack 2x, 10-9 suited. This is all we got from him. Like to see that information, I don't want to start opening pop-ups, look for the exact raise first in at the specific stack depth, and then I see this, and then I see there. No, next time he opens under the gun, which has nothing to do with this, I quickly look what information I get on him, and even without clicking, I see everything I got on him. And that's why I prefer this over hand to note. It's just much easier to multi-table. However, if you have like 200k hands on somebody and you can look like the exact ranges he's opening with the exact sizes at the exact step depth, it's insane. But it's it's not practical with small sample sizes, and even with big sample sizes when you multi-table. So yeah, you will be looking at on like for he opens under the gun, you will go search for the under the gun range, and you will see 0 out of 0 times, and you will see no hand. And then I prefer to see this what I have on him. I'll show a few other like example of other custom pop-ups and stats that I have that are useful for bigger sample sizes. So raise first in by position and by stack depth, clean pop-up. So this is like whatever it is, like 2x up to 2.5x, like maybe at this guy it's up to 3x, but it doesn't include the all-ins. And then on the bottom it's like open shove, 12 to 15 big blinds, 8 to 11 big blinds, the open shove percentages. There's a few questions here. Darkspace says, I use some limp stats on my custom HUD, but I feel it's too much and not as useful without a sample. I agree, you need a sample to use those faults to stats, and yeah, you basically need to see the exact hands that went to showdown. Darkspace also asks, aren't the dynamic stats raise first in by depth by position banned? Dynamic stats, yes. Nothing of this is dynamic. Like it's all static, the same HUD. It's fully allowed on PokerStars and any other site, except Global Poker and Party Poker. So yeah, this is just positional and by stack depth. It doesn't mean too much. I don't use it too often. It just, I see here 22 to 27. He's quite the type that likes to steal button and cutoff, but it doesn't mean too much. I mean, it means something, the extremes. Fold to 4-bet by stack size, specifically aiming at the stack depths where I'm curious. So 18 to 22, 22 to 26, 26 to 33, and by the position. So if this guy, he's gonna be 3-betting you at 30 big blinds, he's not gonna fold. So he's gonna have the classic range that wants to get it in. Like if you think like, oh, my pocket deuces here or my ace-5 suited, he's in my 4-bet jamming range in my GTO strategy, you better not do it versus this guy. And other guys might have like 80% here. So to other guys, they might be great. So again, you need big samples to make this meaningful. One at showdown by bet line. So in this square, you see BBB, BXB. It means bet, 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 check, bet, check, check, bet, check, bet, bet, check, bet. Flop, turn, river. Oh. In position and out of position. It doesn't mean too much. It's just like if somebody like in position, check, check, bet, and you see he won 3 out of 3 times, yeah, then I'm gonna fold my bottom pair. He's just milking. But what I see here in specifically that looks the most interesting in terms of exploit is the one at showdown when check raise the river. So it's dong bet and check raise, flop, turn, river, 13%, which means if this guy is gonna be check jamming, he's gonna be bluffing like very often. Like this is the only place where I see like the biggest exploit is the river check raise and the flop check raise too, but mostly here. To a lot of guys, this is like 9 out of 9 times, 100%. Samples, Mark says sample size seems really important for these stats. How do you check it here? You just hover over like the stat and it shows like 1 out of 7 times, or like it's, you cannot see it here because it's a picture of the stat, but if you hover over any stat, it's also in the HUD, in HUD itself. If you hover over, it shows the name of the stat and like 1 out of 7 times, 150 out of 250 times. So you just hover over it. But in this is like the bet line. Let's say dong bet river and he won 2 out of 2 times, it means something. Bet in position and it is like whatever, like 6 out of 6 times, it means something. Like, but it's specifically about like those strange lines that are very unbalanced. The check bet, the check bet, and the bet check bet. Like the bet check bet line, some people have no bluffs there, and it's quite interesting to see who is having no bluffs. And yeah, you can save some money there. But you need sample size for it. Same for this one. Won at showdown after betting the river. It's to make reads made on sizing. So if he bets less than a quarter pot in position, he lost. Might be 0 out of 3 times, might be 0 out of 1 times, but you can hover over it. But the main tendency I see here is like this is the size that he uses for his bluffs, like 50 to 75%. And when he actually has it, he tries to squeeze in like a few extra big blinds. So that's the main thing that I see here. And when he overbets like 100 to 150% pot, he didn't have it very often. But when he goes any bigger, he had it. Might be 1 out of 1 times. In general, I see these guys, he's bluffing a lot. So I'm not making too big faults. But some guys you see like betting position less than a quarter pot, and it's like 9 out of 9 times they won. And without any of these stats, you talk yourself in like, yeah, I only need to be good, whatever 15% of the time. I'm gonna look him up here, but in reality, you're just gonna lose every time versus that specific player. And not this one. To this one I wouldn't fold, but to some guys. So it's to make like sizing tail reads. You need big samples for it too. Somebody asked there about like to see how much they fold at the short stack to 3-bet. So this is fold to 3-bet by stack depth. The ones that I find interesting: 5 to 10 big blinds, 10 to 12, 12 to 15, 15 to 18, and 18 to 22. Divided by their bet size: 2x, 2.0 to 2.09x, 2.1, 2.19x, and so on, 2.5x, 3x. And it's split it on late position and early position. So for late position, I just take like hijack to button. And for early position, I take low jack to EP, just to have as much info in one pop-up. So it's not that accurate. It's just to spot like the main sizing tells. If you're gonna be rejamming on this guy, it's gonna be versus his 2.1x basically. Like that's where he's been folding. If he 2x's, I might be a little bit more careful, but it doesn't mean too much. Like I will be jamming my pocket pairs and like the standard stuff. But when it's close, like this is the size that I'm attacking. To some guys, you can see with that they 3x fold or 2.5x fold. And for the early position, it can be like 10 to 12 big blinds, 2x folded, 1 out of 2 times, so 50%. Like if the blinds are like 100, 200 in a 180, I wouldn't start making like crazy rejams from the big blinds. But if you're like deep in a Sunday million and he does it, I might be thinking like, yeah, this guy, he doesn't just only have aces. He might look down at jack-10 suited and doesn't want to shove once he played for 12 hours already. So even though it will be small samples, it still is useful in the at the right times. But again, it's not. I don't assume this guy to be folding 100% here. It just it's to find the extremes. To wrap it up, I want to offer you guys like a deal. Don't feel obligated. Like I'm building these HUDs for money basically. So we can modify the HUD you're already using at or the lead stats that you've seen here or that you just thought of. At the nodes, the pop-ups that you've seen. I'll show you what other stuff I have. And the price of it is $75 per HUD. I do this because you're the guys of chat. The normal price is $200 for a custom HUD. It takes me several hours to build, so yeah. Feel free to contact me and we will set it up. If there's any more questions, you can ask them now. How do you get the Notetracker nodes? Yeah, you just basically buy them from me and we import it, and then you have you have the nodes. So yeah, if there's any other questions? Do you sell this one you showcased? You mean this HUD that I showcased or the pop-ups? Yeah, I can, for you guys, I built any HUD you want for $75. Like all the pop-ups you saw, all the notes you saw will be included. And like, I think it's best we base it on the HUD you already use, because some stats you might be used to, and yeah, if you like them, it's best to keep them. And if it's complete garbage, you can we can start from a new HUD, which I think is useful and based on the sample sizes you have on players. If you have on nobody more than 10,000 hands, like I think exactly this HUD that I showcased here is gonna be pretty good. Maybe at like a fold to 3-bet or something, but I wouldn't add too much more. My HUD is Garbo. Breno, after seeing this, I'm out of the matrix essentially. Yep, thanks. Okay. So I will just. Okay. So yeah, whatever. If you want to contact me, take a screenshot or just hit me up on Skype. So that's what I wanted to do the lesson on today. Maybe one day we'll do for some other topic about HUD stats, but this is what I wanted to share. You're welcome. Okay. If there's no more questions, I will go. Okay, cool. So that's it. See you guys. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye and good luck during Scoop.